Council Cabinet meeting Wednesday the 3rd of August. I think we've fixed the IT issues. I neglected to deal with item 6 and the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th and the 13th of July. Can we agree those? Thank you. Item 7 is the scrutiny. Item 8 is the Alistry Park rewilding project. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. This is a short introduction for me. Following the decision to rewild Alistry Park back in November 2021, we've undertaken a 12-week consultation exercise as agreed. And I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Joe Smith here from the Derbyshire Wildlife Trust, who's going to present an overview of the consultation results and the vision for community rewilding.
Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you again for your attendance and contribution to this scheme, without which we wouldn't be able to. Certainly wouldn't be as far as we are, and I appreciate the time and effort that you put into these things. So, by all means, fire us away. Tell us about the consultation.
Hi, yeah, thank you, and it's been a great pleasure to work with the council and with other partners to develop this project. I'm really excited to come back with some next steps. As Duncan mentioned, since the decision was made to rewild Alistry Park last October as part of COP26, we've been consulting with the local community about what rewilding would mean to them and what they would like the park to look like, which has been a really overwhelmingly positive experience. We have had a small number of people with opposition for various different reasons, but the vast majority have been really positive about the initiative. We have over 50% of the people who responded to the consultation want to get involved and help us to monitor and take forward the ideas of the park. We've got hundreds of organisations who want to get involved and communities who want to get involved. So now we're ready to get started. We've put together an activity programme, but it's just indicative of what might happen over the next 2 years, because of course rewilding is by its very nature an unknown quantity in terms of what will actually happen, but we wanted to give people an idea of what would happen, and that's based on the consultation results and the feeling of most of the community that they wanted to see this community rewilding approach, which is very much kind of helping rewilding along its way by doing some interventions like creating meadows, orchards, creating spaces for people, and just helping rewilding to happen a little bit more quickly. And we feel really proud of what we've done. The press has been immense. It's been pedestaled as a nationally significant project. Natural England have been to visit, several experts have been to visit, The Guardian have been to visit. We were on the Today programme on Radio 4, and we really feel it puts the city in a position as a leader in the creation of sustainable, green and carbon neutral cities, and really will help to stimulate lots more projects like this right across Derby and right across the UK. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, for that. And all those experiences with the media and things, you also went through the scrutiny process last night, but in the end of the scrutiny board decided to note the report and not make any recommendations at the end of the day. So all extremely positive. A general, just for my benefit, I think, is there a general perception throughout the consultation that it's the right thing to do, but to do it at the right pace and not to over commercialise and over change the park as it develops over the next 2 years?
Yeah, so the more sort of extreme and inverted commas end of the spectrum with zip wires and mountain bike trails and things was not supported by the community. They very much wanted to keep it as a wild, natural experience, but that people could very much enjoy.
Okay, so with that in mind, I've got a comment through from Omar Aslam and the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor, Gloria, who can't be with us today, but they did leave me a note for just a short views on the subject. So I'll read that out. And the first one is from Omar, the Mayor, and he says, "The rewilding of Alistry Park. Let nature sit in the driver's seat. Great, but if young people do not have the facilities, picnic areas, football pitches, cycle paths, then what is inviting them to a wonderful wildlife experience? Would it be possible to let nature run wild in the driver's seat with control but to include cycle tracks under the trees, under the wooded areas, nice open areas to play sports in, with wildlife supporting them, and walk paths inviting them to walk through. On a similar note, the Deputy Mayor has commented and made 2 points regarding the Alice Street rewilding of Alice Street Park. And she says, community rewilding, good idea, as it ensures that the environment is developed quickly with the participation of the community. She also says, great plan in rewilding Alice Street. I believe it will improve biodiversity and help minimise climate change, which enhances the health and well-being of young people of Derby, as it's already mentioned. So I don't know if you wanted to comment on those, maybe in terms of facilities for young people.
Great. I mean, I welcome both comments, and it's nice to hear their support. We very much want this to be a place for people, so we will be very much creating spaces. It's a very large park, which gives us lots of opportunity to create spaces that suit different audiences and different needs of different audiences. So there will definitely be spaces where you can have a picnic, where you can kick a ball around, where you can play, where you can climb trees, where you can have fun, and that is going to be very much at the heart of the project. But it won't be the zip wires and the mountain bike tracks. It'll be much more soft and gentle and community and wildlife led than that.
But absolutely. But I would hope that those groups and those people involved in the rewilding will take on board the views of everybody and look at the options and develop whatever's appropriate during the 2 years. Yeah.
And we are going to be working with lots of community groups who are specialists in those areas and those audiences to work with them to create those spaces with them rather than for them.
Okay. Paul, did you want to expand on any of these points or the recommendations?
Yeah, I'd just say a few words. Thank you, Chair. I guess just a few observations from me. First off, a massive thank you to our partners, Joe's organisation, the Wildlife Trust. I think they've done a really, really good job of what is an incredibly complicated area. And you know, let's just remind ourselves, this hasn't cost this city council to date a bean in terms of producing 2 really high quality reports on the proposition to rewild Alice Street Park. So the Wildlife Trust have done this from their own resources, and I'm very grateful to Jo and her team for that. And I think it's also important to stress that this project has never been about this city resolving climate change. This is about a project that highlights the challenges of climate change, and at a time when this country has just seen the highest ever temperatures ever recorded. I think it's a opportune reminder of the challenge that climate change faces. It is real, and this is absolutely right that the city responds to that agenda. And similarly with the Forest of the Future, it is not about trying to resolve climate change. Nobody's kidding themselves to say that that's ever going to happen, but it is about highlighting the challenges and the issues around climate change and the importance of nature-based solutions in helping us respond to that really, really significant challenge. So from my perspective, I really welcome the report. I welcome the fact that this is one of the highest responses that we've had to a City Council consultation in recent times. In one form or another, there are over 2,000 people who contributed to the consultation, and I'm very grateful to the people that took the time and effort to do that. We've got some really rich data. It's the first time we've used the City Council's Let's Talk consultation feature, which I think people have found really helpful and useful, and as I say, we've got some really rich data and feedback from that. Yeah, I mean, as Joe has quite rightly said, this is something that we can now work with all of those interested parties, young people, old people, and anyone in between, to put forward a set of proposals about how we can take this project forward. And I think it is important, and this was why I was always really, really excited about this project is because it does put Derby on the map. It was only a few weeks after we'd announced our intentions to rewild Allestree Park that the London Mayor announced their intention to rewild Hyde Park. So Derby is a leader in this field. And I recently attended the LGA conference where I attended a specific event about rewilding, which included some international speakers from the Netherlands and elsewhere. And I was actually approached afterwards by a Cambridge University PhD student to talk about what we're doing in Derby. So this is resonating, and it is getting national and international recognition. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this is in any way trying to resolve the climate crisis, because it clearly isn't. But I think it's a really, really positive step in the right direction in terms of how we as a city respond in a more generic, in more generic terms to the emerging climate crisis. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Well, we can always teach the people in London about one or two things. In fact, Jerry, the man on the tellies, they're outside broadcasting tomorrow, I think. Jerry, did you want to come in?
I'll have to get an agent now, Chris, I'm sure I will. I just want to reiterate what everybody said. Joe's enthusiasm, when I first saw this project, it just resonates everything in about what we should be doing. There's certain things that you don't think about as you do your daily life. But then when you get to the nitty-gritty of everything on this, again, what Paul's saying, it's putting Derby on the map. I've been a councillor for just over 3 years now, and as a resident of Derby, you get very frustrated when you see these things in the newspapers, on the radio, saying Derby City Council are going to do this, Derby City Council are going to do that, and it doesn't happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen now. And the so-called climate champions in this council trying to delay things. I watched the scrutiny last night and I was slightly disgusted about what was going off, trying to delay what we're trying to do for this city and put Derby on the map. And I just want to say, let's get on with this. It won't be a quick fix. We're going to do things with minimal intervention, but this will make sure that Allestree Park is one of the best cities in this country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, thoughts on the subject? Yes, Councillor Skelton.
Right. I think first of all we need to must point out that this project doesn't in any way reduce the production of carbon. And I believe that will be why the climate champions of this council have actually made representations about that. We have a finite amount of money to spend, and if we're actually serious about reducing the production of carbon, an actual systematic programme of insulating housing might be it would be an awful lot better at actually reducing the carbon production in this city. Would also help people with fuel bills as well, because they wouldn't have to spend nearly as much on them. So, to start with, I am a little concerned about point number 8 on the report, the document. It seems very much to be going towards commercialising the park, and yet when you read the consultation and things other people have said, that isn't what people are wanting. So there seems to be that sort of strange kind of pulling in both directions there. So I would like some explanation of that. While obviously some people would like it to be an all singing, all dancing facility with plenty of commercialisation. There's, I think, if I recall correctly, the consultation results don't say that. So what exactly are we agreeing to? I also want to ask about fire risk. Obviously, we have seen over the past few weeks things that we have never seen before in this country, the fires and the destruction of homes in and around the London area. What we don't want is any sort of situation like that being able to happen, because we haven't got like fire breaks and things like that. So I wanted some reassurance about how this is going to be managed, because quite close to the boundaries of the park there are residential streets, and I'm sure those residents, if they thought about it, would not want any increased risk to their properties. Thank you, Chair.
I have to say, I mean, the park's been there for hundreds of years and it's never caught fire yet, but I'm sure I know you're going to say climate change and it's happened in London, but the other thing is you're asking for reassurances about the pace of development. What we're suggesting here is fully covered in that 2.2, and that's the vision for the community rewilding of Alistry Park in conjunction and alongside the results of the consultation. You've heard already, there's no intention to rush it, there's no intention to over-commercialise it, and there's no intention to turn it into a bonfire. I don't know if any of the officers needed to come back on any of that. No. All right then, Martin.
Yeah, I just want to make it quite clear that I certainly didn't attempt or want to delay it last night, and neither did 95% of the committee. And I say this half tongue in cheek, because I was asked by one cynical soul what all the fuss was about not cutting the grass on Alistry Park, because he hadn't cut his lawn for 4 weeks. I did tell him he was being a little bit cynical, and it was perhaps a little bit more to it than that. But he did ask the question what the savings were for not cutting the grass on Alistry Park, and I think it's a reasonable question for him to ask. I had to tell him I didn't know, and I don't know if any officers can help us here this evening. Thank you, Chair.
I think the costs of the mowing that used to take place are known, but of course that was a different mowing process than what would be required now. Did you want to comment on that, on the costs of mowing, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, the original costs of grounds maintenance were taken. I can't remember the figure, but that was in official record in the original report about closing the golf course. So clearly that money is being saved at the moment. There is some minimal mowing taking place because we have been letting the grass grow a lot on the park, but some areas are remaining to be mown to allow good access through the land. So yeah, the figure is known, but I can't recall it.
Okay, I think it was in the region of 40,000, but Martin, we can get back to you with the actual figure. Paul.
40,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to say, Chair, clearly if we are going to proceed on the basis of, and obviously not making any commitments at this stage in terms of financial commitments, well, clearly ourselves and the Wildlife Trust will have to spend some money on the park. The notion that this is some kind of cynical attempt to not spend money on the park that's just not going to happen, and there are obviously some financial implications contained in the proposals to go along with the community rewilding. So that's something we're going to have to look at. We'll have to bring back some firm figures, obviously, once we've agreed what those plans are. So the notion that we're not going to spend any money on the park, I think, is a bit of a red herring.
Okay. Anybody else? Now, in that case, then, we've got two recommendations. One is to receive the details of the consultation, which we have, and we've accepted those in Appendix 1. And the second recommendation, as I say, is for the vision of community rewilding of Alistry Park, contained in Appendix 2, to be adopted, subject to ongoing consultation and assessment of the financial issues, which goes to the questions that have been asked of it. So can we agree those, Cabinet? Thank you. Agreed. Okay, so return to the agenda. Item 9 is the extension of delegation. Thank you, Joe. Yes, thank you for coming again today. Extension of delegation to approve affordable housing schemes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, sorry.
Members will
Ian,
recall...
sorry, could you just announce yourself and your role, please?
Thank you, Chair. Ian Fulliger, I head up strategic housing. Thank you. Members will recall that one of your ambitions is to increase the scale and the pace that we develop and acquire affordable housing within the city. We're undertaking a great many measures to ensure that we do that, but one of the measures that we've taken was that in August 21, Cabinet approved to delegate investment decisions up to £2.5 million in value to the Cabinet member, the Strategic Director and the Section 151 officer. And the rationale for that delegation was that at times when the property market is hot, it's really beneficial for officers to be able to move quickly to acquire properties and actually compete on a level playing field with other investors within the property field. The delegation has been trialled for 10 months. During that time, we used it on 17 occasions, and certainly the officer experience is that it's been really beneficial. It has increased our pace, it has enabled us to compete, and as I said, we have been successful 17 times in purchasing properties. As the report outlines, there has also been a saving in officer time through the delegation. The recommendation, Chair, is to extend that delegation for a period of 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. For the record, the exec scrutiny looked at this last night and resolved to note the report. Thank you. Any questions, comments? No. In that case, it's fairly straightforward. I think we can move to agreeing recommendations 2.1 through 2.4 and be agreed. Thank you. So item 10 is property transactions.
Yes, Chair, I'll pick this up.
Could you announce yourself, John, please? Sorry. Could you just announce yourself, please?
Certainly. I'm John Sadler. I'm the Strategic Asset Manager located within Property Services. This report is seeking consent to declare surplus and approve the disposal of 2 properties. In addition, it's seeking a delegated authority to approve the detailed terms of the various transactions when the properties are sold. The 2 properties concerned are the Rycote Centre and land off Bridge Street. Looking at Rycote Centre, this is a large property built in the 70s, not fit for purpose, very difficult to maintain, with a base condition liability of £600,000, and obviously we want to can't refurbish it to meet current requirements. The building is currently mainly vacant. The only occupier is the Derby Deaf Club. This is an organisation which supports the deaf community in Derby. They were very active before the COVID lockdown. During the COVID lockdown up to now, they have not been able to hold any meetings in the building. We've been working with them and we have identified some alternative premises which they're happy with, and we're in the process of negotiating the terms of their occupation. The other premises is land at Bridge Street. This is a vacant site at the top end of Bridge Street, opposite the University Business Centre and their halls of residence. It's sort of within that campus area. It is held within the housing revenue account. It was looked at for housing. However, the viability of that is marginal. But at the same time, the Derby University have approached us to see if they can purchase the site with a view to absorbing that into their master plan, which we think is probably, on balance, the better option. Therefore, we're seeking consent to dispose of the site to the university. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Exec Scrutiny looked at this last night and resolved to note the report. Martin, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just a quick comments, and John is aware that I made it last night and I was reassured by John's comments, because both of these sites are in my own ward of Darley, and there is concern. Certainly the Rycote site is a large area of land, and John reassured us last night that the Derby City Council will influence in a positive way as possible the use of this site to get it right, not only for the City Council, but also for local people as well. So we're reassured by that. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Baggy.
Thanks, Chair. Just briefly, I suppose it's a question to get some reassurance that the council and ultimately Derby City Council's taxpayers are getting value for money from these transactions. We have had it previously when properties are virtually sold before this report makes it to Cabinet. So have we, I suppose the question is, have we got any independent check that the receipts we get for asset disposals are true market values and we're getting value for money for the disposals?
Yes, obviously, in any transaction, we're mindful of our statutory obligation under Section 123 to get best consideration for these properties, and we have processes in place to ensure that that happens. If that is not the case, obviously that raises another discussion point, and we have to address those accordingly. But in essence, we will be transparent on these transactions and we'll get market value for them.
Any other questions, comments? No, in that case we have recommendations 2.1 through 2.3. Can they be agreed? Thank you. Item 11 then is a latish item, Derby Nuclear Skills Academy on Infinity Park. Who's presenting this one? Yeah, sorry, Tim.
So, Tim Bagshaw, Head of Economic Growth. The report is essentially to update the Cabinet on our proposal, our ongoing project to repurpose the iHub building into a new Nuclear Skills Academy in Derby. An opportunity to work with Rolls-Royce, with the University of Derby, with the Nuclear AMRC, National College of Nuclear, to create up to 2,000 new apprenticeships over the next 10 years and hopefully an ongoing apprenticeship facility for the city going forward. The report basically details a series of ongoing working with our key partners to put in place the necessary arrangements around things like lease and sort of change of use, but also how we're working in particular with the University of Derby to adapt the building and prepare it so that it is ready to accommodate the first year cohort of 200 new apprentices in September. We've entered into a Memorandum of Understanding with all of the key partners. It's not a binding agreement, but it clearly sets out what is the responsibility of each of the partners. As I say, it's a work ongoing, but it's making good progress. Encouragingly, very positively, there have been over 1,200 applications for the initial 200 first year 200 places and over 180 offers made to students who, as I say, will be starting in September. That really is the essence of the report, and as I say, it's an ongoing process. It's been quite a challenging period. The other thing that I should also describe is our work with each of the tenants. We've had very positive interaction with all of the tenants on the process so far. We are getting very close to resolving all of the office tenants currently, and they have either been relocated into other Connect Derby facilities or working with partners into partner estate as well. And we're also working with each of the workshop tenants, and that will be a more gradual relocation over the course of the next 6 to 12 months. And again, we're working very closely with our partners who've been increasingly supportive of what we're trying to do there. But everything seems to be at the moment on course for opening the college or the academy to the first cohort of 200 students in September. Thank you.
I'll bring in a second, Martin. Just an initial comment, Tim. Thank you for that introduction. But I think it's fair to say circumstances weren't ideal in the way it came about initially. But we have to acknowledge the cooperation of the tenants of the iHub in looking for alternative accommodation with us, a lot of it within the within our own facilities, but they have been more than reasonable in their approach to what needs to happen to make this happen. And so we should acknowledge that, along with acknowledging the efforts of officers in making that happen under short time scales. It's not, local authorities aren't renowned for the speed in which they do things, but when we put on the spot and we have to do things, we can do it, but it takes that extra effort from officers, which has to be acknowledged, and we're well on the way to that, and thank you for that. Let's go through. Martin, you wanted, I'll bring you second, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the Executive Scrutiny Board last night, we all felt that it provides immense potential for young people to enter into a highly skilled long-term career and further bolster our world-leading reputation as a city that drives new technology and cutting-edge manufacturing. And in the immortal words of Buzz Lightyear, it's to infinity and beyond, I think. I mean, who knows, the students that could be being trained at the new facility could be working on the new generation of Rolls-Royce powered power stations, which will give this country much needed energy that we need in the years to come. So we certainly welcome these proposals. Now, because our leader works at Rolls-Royce and the deputy leader is not here, I've been asked to ask by my group a series of questions, if that's okay. Chair? First of all...
Series? How many questions?
45. No, I've got 6. I've got 6.
Let's deal with them quite quickly,
I'll be very
quick. It is a cabinet meeting,
Can
not
we have a
scrutiny
copy of the memorandum? We need full access to it, including details of the financial arrangements, given that the 12th of September is not far away. And the question's been asked by my group, how can we delegate when the finances aren't known? Is this not a bit reckless? Because we're talking about 250k lease. Questions about what are the costs and why is the council paying this? And with regard to the legal advice, who's paying for the legal advice? So very supportive of the proposals, but there are questions here that I think we just need to address before we go ahead, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, I can. Thank you, Chair. In terms of legal costs, first, each party to the project has engaged their own lawyers, and each party is paying for their own legal costs. So each party's covering their own legal costs of this matter. In terms of the delegations, the main provisions of the lease are set out in the Cabinet report in terms of the proposed rent, and that hasn't changed. So the delegation would be, the details of that are set out in the report. The delegation relates to the fact that the lease will be subject to ongoing negotiation. The plan will be to enter into a tenancy at will by the end of this week, which will allow the university to enter the iHub as of Monday to progress works. And that will be accompanied by a licence to alter, again, which will permit the university to conduct the initial works in terms of the iHub. The parties will then, the University of Derby and City Council will then continue to negotiate the final terms of that lease, which obviously the due diligence required by the university in undertaking a lease of the building are ongoing, and whilst we are agreeing heads of terms this week as well with them, there simply hasn't been enough time to get us to agreed terms of the lease in the short period of time we've had to bring this project forward.
I think, Martin, I'd take that as a reassurance that we will do our due diligence, we'll do it at pace, and we'll be sure that the interests of the public and the council are upheld here. It's just it is having to be done at pace, and I'm sure further details will emerge and be reported to Cabinet and stuff as we go along, yeah?
Absolutely. You did also mention, Councillor Repton, about sharing the MOU. It would be entirely appropriate for that to be shared with the leader of the opposition, if you wish to see the MOU. It's a non-binding agreement between the five parties to the project. We'll be able to share that once it's finally signed. It's being in the process of being executed at the moment.
An indication of the due diligence is that we all parties involved have appointed their own legal people to make sure their own interests are covered, and as a result we're going to get some costs out of that, but it secures what can only be described as a fantastic potential facility for years and years to come, for the young people of Derby to start on a fantastic path in employment. So it's just something that's just too good to pass up, and we will reap the benefits over the next few years. So did you want to come in, Paul, on this?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to say, grateful for the comments you made about the staff, and I guess I'll just go a little bit further than that, and just to say particular thanks to Tim, who I think kind of came into this. It was probably about his third day in the council. I probably didn't know what hit him, but a big thank you to him for the work that he's done to make this happen, and also to Anne Batty, who's led a lot of the detailed work, particularly around the moving of the existing tenants. She's done a fantastic job, again, under really challenging circumstances. And also a big thank you to Emily, because I think she's done a fantastic job in terms of pulling together the, what she's just described herself in terms of the governance and the legal issues that are still, there's obviously some issues still to be resolved in terms of the lease, but I think that's been a fantastic demonstration of Team Derby in terms of the council staff. So a big thank you to me, and if there's anybody I've missed in particular, then I do apologise, and that's one issue. Also, I guess this again is yet another example of what the city can achieve when it works in partnership. So clearly, one of our most important strategic employers saw this as a real challenge for them in terms of the inability to attract and retain suitable talent to work in the nuclear industry. And so they've taken a very bold step, in my view, to grow their own, and I think that's a fantastic initiative. And they've asked for help and support from the City Council, from our colleagues at the university, from the NMRC, and from the Nuclear Skills Academy. So I think, again, a great demonstration of what we can do when we work together and in partnership. And as you quite rightly said, Chair, this is going to hopefully bring, the fact that the number of people that have applied for the first tranche of these roles is something like 5-fold oversubscribed is incredible, really. As I think it says in the report, 178 offers made to date, and I'm sure there'll be many young people across the city who will benefit from what will be, I'm sure, a fantastic career. So just to say thank you to our partners for that. And finally, again, I think as you said yourself, Chair, a big thank you to our existing tenants who, this came as a bit of a bolt out of blue, as I said at the last time we discussed this at Cabinet, as it did to us. And I'm sure there's some lessons to be learnt there in terms of, proper engagement and communication. But nonetheless, very grateful for their understanding and empathy around having to move, recognising the potential significance to the city, and I'm really pleased to see that we've managed to relocate the vast majority of our existing tenants. There's one or two that we're still working with, and we'll continue to work with to ensure that they're given the best opportunity to relocate their businesses elsewhere within the city. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Skelton.
Thank you. Yes, I'd just like to add my thanks really to everybody involved. Obviously this has progressed since it was last at Cabinet, and it all looks like everything's coming together nicely. But particularly, obviously, when it all began, it was rather a surprise to many people, pleasant surprise, but nonetheless. But obviously a number of people, existing tenants and others, have had to sort of quickly change their plans and adapt. And I think they deserve very much to be thanked for recognising the issue was of real importance to the city strategically, and that they've been willing to adapt their own plans for their own businesses. And obviously, the council has helped them in that, and I think now all that partnership, team working, has really produced benefits. So hopefully, it won't be too long before all the existing tenants have found suitable accommodation that they are very happy with, and it's a win-win situation all round. Then, thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that positivity. And on that note, unless there's any other contributions, we've got recommendations 2.1 through 2.4. Can they be agreed? They're agreed. Thank you. Moving on then to item 12, the cycle tour series. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report is recommending the submission of a bid to be a host city for the cycle race tour series from 2023 to 2025, the responsibilities for which are outlined in paragraph 4.5 of the report. It's a unique event launched in 2009 and has helped to revolutionise cycling in the UK. It includes some of the best men's and women's riders in the country and also elite riders from other countries, which creates an unforgettable event atmosphere within places that host it in the month of May. In addition to the economic impacts, which are outlined in 3.2 of the report, there's a number of key benefits which are described in paragraph 3.3. Furthermore, approvals being sought to bid to be a host city for the Women's Tour in 2023 and the Tour of Britain event in 2024, both of which have similar responsibilities, which are outlined in 4.5, and again, significant benefits, which are outlined in 3.6. These events are the UK's biggest and most prestigious bike races that attract the world's best cyclists. So hopefully that's a good introduction. Please take any questions.
Thank you very much. It would seem that we've had the bonus recently of the national team practicing and using our velodrome, which has drawn attention to the city and the facilities that we've got and our interest in cycling, and this seems to be an extension of that. Paul, I know you've had some direct dealings with in respect of this and other potential developments for cycling in the city.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This seems, a really great opportunity for the city, and again, I guess a bit like Alistry, this is about, in addition to those broader aims of promoting the challenge facing us with climate change and biodiversity loss. This particular project is about putting Derby on the map, where it should be, in my opinion. And what better way to do that than to have be part of a national cycle event. We're only one of 5 places in the country that's got a velodrome. And actually, when we met with Tim Stanton, it was a bit like he did say to me that Derby has got the least well-known velodrome in the country. My intention is for that to change. And it was great to hear that, their plans about how they could potentially make greater use of the Derby velodrome, particularly with some of their youth teams, the Great British youth teams. We clearly aren't going to be able to compete with Manchester going forward, but what I think we have done is demonstrated to the Great British cycling team that we're a good city to host some of their teams, and I think that would be great going forward, and that's something we want to continue to work with them on. So being part of the Women's Tour and the Tour of Britain, I think would be great events. They attract a lot of people, and obviously there's hopefully some really positive knock-on implications of people coming to watch the races, people young and old, people coming to spend money in the city. We want to see greater vibrancy. We've seen the benefits of what the Commonwealth Games is currently doing in Birmingham, in terms of the vibrancy in that city right here, right now. And I should know because my wife was there just yesterday and told me that the place was absolutely buzzing. Now, you know, this isn't the Commonwealth Games, but this is something that will hopefully contribute towards our ambition to bring people into our city centre, to make greater use of our city centre, to make it an attractive place, to make it an exciting place, and also to promote the great benefits of cycling. I'm a cyclist myself, although you wouldn't know it to look at me. Well, indeed. And it's a great sport. And it, you know, and also, of course, it's a very sustainable way of travel. And one of the things that we would hope as a byproduct of this would be to promote cycling as a means of getting around. And Derby's a great place to get around. It's got some fantastic cycle infrastructure, which we're continuing to upgrade and enhance. And, you know, there's so many benefits to this. The economic, the social, the environmental, the health and well-being aspects. I think it's a really, really positive initiative. And I hope, you know, I look forward to working with the team that we've been talking to and getting Derby on the map in terms of being a host city for these events going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have actually got one member of the meeting today who looks like a cyclist because he's put his special shirt on. Councillor Eyre, do you want to contribute?
Thank you, Chair. And I have to admit, I never thought I'd be sat in a cabinet meeting wearing a cycling jersey, but, you know, yeah, never expected that really. But I want to express my full and 100% support for this proposal. I've been a cyclist now for about 12 years. I used to race a bit when I was younger. And I just wanted to give a bit of an explanation really on how each of the events are quite different from each other, just give a bit of explanation of what they are. So the tour series is, there's a men's and women's event, usually one after the other, and they visit various locations over the country. So some of the ones from this year have included Clacton-on-Sea, Sunderland and Manchester, but it also goes to Sheffield, Durham, Oxford, Redditch and many others. The events usually consist of a singular lap round the course the first time, which is about between 800 metres and 2 kilometres long, followed by an hour's worth of racing and then 5 more laps after that. And that's usually when the racing sort of starts to hot up more than anything. So as a minimum, you're getting 2 hours of a spectator sport that is free for people to attend, plus the additional extras that will go on with those as well. And the event, the tour series, tend to attract some of the best national riders that this country's got. It attracts a lot of the up-and-coming pros and a lot of the veterans from the sport as well. Tour of Britain and the Women's Tour are both slightly different, and they attract some of the sort of the creme de la creme of the cycling realm. They get a lot of the World Tour riders to those events. They're slightly different in that they'll start in one place. They'll go on for between 120 and about 250 kilometres during the day, and then they'll finish at another place. So some of the previous routes have been sort of Carlisle to Gateshead, Sherford to Exeter, Penzance to Bodmin, Durham to Sunderland, that sort of thing. Each day is known as a stage, and there'll be one stage a day for about 9 days. There'll be a winner on each day, and then there's the overall winner for the shortest time to have completed the entire course in. So there's some of the riders that will bring in. You've got sort of some former riders, include the Belgian champions, the world champions, German champions, French and British champions as well. And that's alongside teams that are based in Israel, Spain, France, South Africa, and across the country, who would all come to compete in Derby. They would all have a presence and bring their fans, bring their supporters, bring all their team support to Derby for this event. So for anyone who may be unsure, there are the sort of differences between the two. But the reason I'm so supportive of these events and why I'm so excited that Derby could be the host to them is that these are how I got into cycling in the first place. So I'm sort of evidence really that it works to get people involved in the sport. When I was younger, my dad, my granddad and I would go to various cycling races up and down the country. So that included things like the Tour Series, which was the Halford Tour Series at one point around 2011, 2012. The Lincoln Grand Prix, which is a yearly event separate from this, but something that the city could look to hold after we've held these events. And amateur races as well. Then we'd go with my uncle and my cousins, so 6 of us would go together to these events. At each one, if you want to see the finish, you need to be there hours before, which means you need to buy dinner somewhere at the event. You then buy your drinks while you're there. You then buy your snacks while you're there. You then try and get hold of any of the memorabilia that you can while you're there. Once the race is finished and you've watched it for the 2 hours or longer that's there, you then get drinks and food in the evening and then head home. By the time you've done all that, you've put a fairly decent amount of money into the local economy. And if we're pulling this into the city centre, that's a fairly decent chunk of money from each person we could get going into the city centre. And the report notes that you can get up to 10,000 people at these races, and the bigger the event, the bigger the stars that are there, and the better the comms that we can get on this, the more people we can get at these events. And after watching these races myself as a teenager, I then started racing. I went to various velodromes, I bought a proper racing bike, and I bought various items of cycling kit. I was never any good at racing. I'm a counsellor now, so you can tell how good I was at it. But I went out and I spent the money, and that's what people across this city, across this county, will do once they've seen these events. And I believe the stats do back that up as well. And if we can bring that into the city centre, what a boost for the city centre and for the city that would be. If half of the people who come to see this event go into cycling afterwards or take it up in some way, that's fewer distances and fewer journeys being done by car. That's more purchases of bikes and cycling equipment. That's more exercising and losing weight. And we've seen the commentary over the last few days about the obesity crisis that the city, the county and the country are in. And hopefully there'll be more people using the velodrome, where, as we mentioned, we've got the British cycling team who've been using it and who've said fantastic things about the velodrome and about our city. Add into that my hopes that it will bring in more people to the city, alongside what I hope will be a host of events during the 2023, 24 and 25 calendar, and we give that real boost to the city centre, and including our efforts to diversify it and add more events in there to complement the retail, hospitality and leisure offers we've already got. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a very, very good thing for our city. The proposal's got my 100% support, and I really hope we can be successful. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Big support in yes, Councillor Skelton.
Right, yes, having listened to Councillor Eyre, it certainly does sound exciting. One thing caught my eye on the financial and value for money issues. It says obviously about the potential amounts of money it would cost to put on these events. It says these figures would be reduced if sponsorships and other funding sources are identified. So I presume we have a plan to get as much sponsorship and other funding sources as possible. And if so, have any sort of details been thought about yet?
I'm sure we have that in mind. We need to the principle of doing it first. Sponsorship is something we'll be seeking. I have to say I don't think the costs are extortionate already, but anything we can rustle up towards the cost would be good. And I'm sure we've got that in mind to do that. Baggy.
Thank you, Chair. I absolutely agree. This is all three events, if we landed them, would be unique, prestigious, ambitious and exciting for Derby. I would argue, though, that Derby is already on the map with facilities like the velodrome and the newly opened Mowing sports facilities and the Museum of Making. Derby is definitely on the map. We need to promote ourselves more, promote the facilities that we offer, and do a better job at that. Absolutely agree. There's room for improvements. I don't want this to be seen as a criticism, but I just think we should be mindful of two things. Councillor Skelton has just touched on it. I think having additional unbudgeted spend at this time, we just need to make sure we can afford that. We eagerly await Q1's outturn position, but if we're successful for all three of these events, it's circa £750,000 unbudgeted spend at the moment. Put other unbudgeted spends on that, the figure starts to go up. So we just need to be making sure we cut the cloth accordingly, and these are affordable. Obviously, if we can mitigate some of these spends by sponsorship, that's got to be welcome. And the other point, again, I don't want this to be seen as a criticism, but I think this is the right time to make it, and it's a testament really to our Culture, Leisure and Tourism Department, because events like this bridge across those areas of the council. I know already, cabinet-wise, we've not got a dedicated cabinet member for Culture, Leisure and Tourism, and hopefully you'll consider changing that in the future, because I think it's important to give it that focus and give it that drive. and hopefully within the officer corps we do remain and keep that directorate, because it's, you know, this event itself with the delegated authorities, the leisure side has a intricate link with the tourism side and with the culture side. So we're just making sure the work in the past that we've done to bring these areas together, we remain focused and continue to do that in the future. We know there's a reorg happening. We've not seen the details on it. And again, no criticism of anybody, but it's probably one of the longest reorgs that you know, we've seen here in this council. It's gone on for month and month. Lots of people contact me with lots of uncertainty about their own futures and how they would work. So I know I'm using this opportunity, maybe not for the right particular cause, back these events, back this paper, but let's draw a close to the reorg, particularly the question around that area of culture, leisure and tourism. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments. I think just to reassure you that the finance of the council are every day uppermost in our thoughts. So I absolutely accept the caution in respect to cost, but we think we can mitigate that. And when you balance the GVA benefits as described by Councillor Eyre, I think it's a position we need to work on. In relation to no dedicated leisure, culture and tourism member, all those responsibilities are well covered by the way that we distributed those responsibilities, and in my experience so far is that that's actually been a positive, and that the three council cabinet members responsible are referring to each other on a regular basis, and as a result we are covering all the bases. So that's the current position, and the reorganisation you refer to is down to others to resolve, which is coming. So thank you for your comments. They are noted and appreciated. Yes, Alan.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yep. I think we should support this. I think it's a great idea. I think Councillor Eyre made a very passionate speech, and I commend him on that. Although I do think that we should say that there are other channels that you can use as well as Sky, because you were doing an advert for them on that television screen. I don't know if you realise that, but there are other channels you can use. However, we fully support anything that encourages healthy lifestyle, encourages the health of the nation, health of the city, health of the people coming here. So we should always support cycling as part of that healthy drive. And I think it makes it even more exciting that it becomes a competition, because it's a race. So there are a lot of things going for it, and it's really good that Derby's being considered and is considering taking it up. I do have one thing that I would ask the organisers, and I'm not sure if a route has already been chosen, but I would ask them to avoid the entrance to City Point. City Point suffers from all the racing that goes on, the running races, and I get no end of complaints about the fact they can't get out of their own area called City Point, because there's only one entrance in and out. And I just hope that maybe we could avoid using City Point, because it becomes another race that they are then inconvenienced for. So if we could do that, that would be absolutely brilliant. But we're fully on board with this. Thank you.
Okay, noted. Thank you. Councillor Barker, you wanted to come in?
I knew there'd be some. I'm going to be very nice in my lycra when I get that going, so they'll leave their heart out. I was just going to reinforce the fact what Councillor Shanker said. I mean, recently, very recently, we put in for, and we unfortunately didn't get the City of Culture. This is one of those examples where Derby is still in the game for the future in relation to this sort of thing. We have a history of cycling. We have the foresight to build the velodrome, and yes, it is now being used by the Great British team. It becomes Derby to, in actual fact, go for this. When it comes to advertising and so forth, I mean, obviously, the Cycle Club of Great Britain, who runs the national race, brings with it its own sponsorship for the start and finish. But the cycle race, certainly the Great Britain race, will not only go through Derby, it will also end up in the county, and so therefore we'll be working together with our partners in the Derbyshire, and there will be crowds along the way. I well recollect in my halcyon days as a young police officer seeing the milk race come through Derbyshire. And at that time, even in those sort of greyer days of the early 70s, there was a considerable sponsorship that facilitated the barriers and so forth that are necessary to protect the public. And so I don't see really a problem being involved with actually facilitating this. Yes, the council will have to seed fund something, but I well foresee the great public of Derby, the businesses of Derby and so forth, also taking this on board, seeing the potential for Derby, seeing the potential for a further bid for City of Culture in the future, and let's bring it on home.
I seem to remember you used to take part in a race many years ago. Was it the Beaujolais Nouveau race to go and fetch the wine back from?
Any race I take part in, Leader, has always got to involve something to do with alcohol. Yes.
Councillor Eyre, you wanted to come back in?
Thanks, Chair. Just for the reassurance of Councillor Graves, of course there are alternatives to Sky and anyone else who may be advertised on this T-shirt. The reason I went for this one is this is the only jersey I own for a team that no longer exists. Thank you.
So, in the absence of any other comments, we have recommendations 2.1 to 2.6, but whilst I've been sat here, I've been contemplating adding an extra one, so that maybe Cabinet supports Councillor Eyre to return into training, to get him fit enough to take part in these races, and that we could nominate Councillor Barker as his coach. I don't know whether you'll be on the motorbike in front. Okay. Recommendations 2.1 to 2.6, can they be agreed? Thank you. Good.
Thank you, Chair. Alison Parkin, Director of Financial Services. This report details the financial improvements required for three substantive items this month. The first one is in relation to the bike share project, which is funded from the Transforming Cities Fund, which is a joint project with Nottingham City Council and is funded through some capital allocations through the Transforming Cities Fund, funded through the Department for Transport. Now, the bike share project was originally approved at Cabinet on the 10th of June 2020, so this isn't a new project, although the funding was originally allocated to Nottingham City Council, and following legal and procurement advice, the two authorities are now going to contract directly with the successful bidder. Therefore, Nottingham City Council will be allocating the funding to Derby of 1.266 million. Just to reassure you, the procurement process will be a competitive procedure with negotiations, which means there will be a negotiation phase prior to receiving the final bids. And the council envisages that the scheme will be up and running in the city for early next year. The recommendations of the report are to approve acceptance of the funding to a maximum value of 1.2 million from Nottingham City Council, to add the bike share project to the 22-23 capital programme, and to award the funding of a capital grant to the successful bidder for the bike share project following that successful tender exercise. The second item on the report is in relation to a capital bid to the Department for Education for children's homes. The DFE have invited local authorities to apply for capital funding to create additional provision in children's homes for children and young people in their area, and the bid deadline is the 3rd of September. There is currently a shortfall in provision locally with complex placements for children in care, and the City Council is proposing to have a joint funded bid with Nottinghamshire County Council and acting as a consortium together with this City Council, and that's the criteria of the bid. In terms of the match funding for that capital programme, our proportion of that will be around circa 300,000. That funding is already on the capital programme because if you remember we were submitted a bid earlier this year and were unsuccessful in that submission of the bid, which required 300,000. So that funding for that first bid is already on the capital programme. So the recommendation of the report is to approve that Derby City Council be party to a bid for capital funding under the DFE Children's Home bid programme and to approve the acceptance of that funding should we be successful. The final item on the report is in relation to the local SEND Special Educational Needs Capital Strategy. If you recall at our last meeting on the 13th of July, Council Cabinet approved the phase 1 of that SEND capital programme, Living My Best Life. This report seeks to add to the capital programme some additional funding that was received from the Department for Education on the 29th of March, where we received circa £9.1 million of capital grants, 4.7 million in this financial year and an additional 4.3 million next financial year. The proposals of that phase 1 of that report considered in July was to begin approve some capital works at Ivy House Special School and Kingsmead Special School. It's proposed that the construction works at Ivy House Special School will be funded through a standard council grant agreement with the trust to deliver that project. So the recommendations of this report is to approve the proposed amendments for the new additional £9.1 million worth of funding to the capital programme, to approve the new capital schemes of Ivy House and Kingsmead to the capital programme, and to award of a grant agreement to the Sure Education Trust to deliver those associated capital works at Ivy House Special School. Thank you.
Good. For the record, the Exec Scrutiny Board looked at this and decided to note the report. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Skelton.
Thank you, Chair. Very much welcome the bike share project. Obviously, I think quite a lot of people were upset when the previous scheme of being able to hire bikes across the city obviously fell victim to sustained vandalism, and obviously I hope this will go some way to make sure we can have a scheme that works properly and that's got better security on it and things like that. So very much support this, and very pleased to hear about extra money that we've got for SEND capital programme. And also I hope we will be successful in this bid for money for children's homes. Obviously it was said we didn't manage to get it when we applied the first time round. Have we actually had any feedback as to why we didn't get it, and have we kind of built that into this new bid? Thanks.
We don't have the Cabinet member here. And Alison, have you any idea on that? I mean, and Andy's not here either, so Alison.
I think in terms of the first bid, I think they were overwhelmed with applications because this is a national issue across all local authorities in terms of sustainability. So it's pleasing that the Department for Education did find some additional monies to offer an additional tranche for that.
Perhaps you could pose a question to Andy or Andy Vaughan if you need to know any more details, yeah? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Councillor Poulter. Clearly, the Council has given considerable thought to providing more accommodation for children's homes. It's quite unfortunate that it is required in today's society, but clearly there is a need and there is a shortfall. However, will you tell us, without providing the exact address, where it is in the city you want to set the home up?
Again, I'm sure officers can supply that information offline, if that's okay, and with the details, Alison.
Yeah, we can do that, but we haven't actually sought any provision for this. We will, in terms of the accommodation, that would be subject to work with Nottingham City Council, Nottingham County Council, and actually successful the bid. So we haven't actually secured accommodation for this bid yet.
I think all options are on the table, and some old properties are potentially could be restood up, could stood back up or whatever. But we'll certainly share the information once the decisions are made. Okay, unless there are any other comments, we have recommendations 2.1 to 2.5. Can that be agreed? Okay, thank you. That actually completes the business of Cabinet today. Just to comment on observation, it's probably one of the most positive Council Cabinet meetings we've had in a long while. I think the questions and comments have been justified and studied and answered appropriately, and I welcome that sort of approach in the future. But basically, we've agreed a fantastic project at Alistry Park. We've done some more work on housing schemes, sold some properties that we need to dispose of. The Nuclear Skills Academy is a fantastic opportunity for the future. And we've agreed a cycling tour series in the city, along with the bids that we've made for funding from elsewhere. A very positive meeting. I thank you all for your contributions. Thank you to the public for watching and listening, showing an interest. And there's one more big opportunity the city has in terms of the potential for us to become the home of Great British Rail. The QR codes are here. Look on the website. And absolutely get your votes in, because it's vital to the city that we get your votes in to encourage government to allow us the natural home for Great British Rail to be here in Derby. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention, and